Oh, very good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, welcome back to another another edition. We're going to talk money. I think, as we all know, I think one of the big things to always kind of realize when we're talking about money, it's always a touchy subject. Like everybody's always kind of got this opinion about money, etc. So yeah, I think today is going to be quite a nice cutting discussion around money and where it goes, etc. So I think one of the first things we want to do is very briefly just say thank you to the guys last week for joining us. So a big shout out to the team from iGen. Yeah, it was really good to have you guys in the studio, so to say. But also, sadly, as you guys can see, the chair is empty today. We only have the new home cap that's taking up the space here. Unfortunately, our guest couldn't make it, but he did send his apologies, and he will be back. But that does not mean we cannot talk about money. I have to say, this whole week I had that what is it, the Donald Trump song. Called, I don't know, money. Anyway, I think that was like stuck in my head the whole week when I was going through kind of the motions and preparing for the session this week. I don't think today's session is going to be very long. I think literally, if you guys got any questions, post it in the question section. Happily kind of like respond to them as we go through this. So I think, as everything, this is one of those there's no BS in our sessions. We go straight to the truth. And I think one of the things we're going to talk about, obviously, as we said, it's all about the money. It's kind of like the lease versus finance versus paying cash versus a PPA, which is what New Home is offering, to kind of like understand all of those things. And I think one of the aspects to truly understand is literally which one works best. So off the bat, we will always tell our clients, if you have the funding available, pay for the system outright. It's the best option that you have. The best investment is the investment you make in yourself. Unfortunately, we know that, getting a proper solar system is not a cheap and cheerful affair. You can go cheap and cheerful. I mean, like we spoke this in episode 1, we know all about that, but you can go cheap and cheerful. But is it the right thing to do? That's a whole different discussion. And we're not going to delve into this, otherwise we'll be wasting all of your time here. But I think the one thing that we kind of like want to bring into the discussions quite simply is that I want everybody to remember that if you pay for it yourself, it's the best investment you can make. But as I say, we were fortunate. I mean, we did clipped it onto our home loan when we did ours, and it was an interesting discussion. I'm not paying mine off in the 8-year time period, like even close, like not even close. So finance is a very interesting route to follow. That all said, we definitely believe that giving clients the best advice is buy it yourself. Always do that. And then like we go on to the next step is, let's go the finance route. Now I've made some notes here and kind of things, but like we're always going to have the questions like, okay, Sean, but how much does it cost? So I think it's quite widely published out there. We know exactly what the system costs. It's on the website. If you don't know what the website is, head over to www.newhome.app. Have a look at that. But if you have an idea, and I like to kind of like just work on the middle ground products, but the rest are on there. So we all know kind of like the New Home 30. I've got my notes here, so I need to run off the notes. So a New Home 30 will put you back, if you have to pay for it out of your own pocket, in the region of about 280,000 Rand. I can tell you, I don't have 280,000 Rand lying around that I can just quickly throw in a solar system. But there are people that is fortunate enough to have, and great, go for it. It's a very good thing to do. The understanding then is it's like, okay, right, but Sean, let me go finance it through my bank. They're going to give me a really good rate. And you're quite right. So what is that? What does it mean for you if the bank is kind of like giving me a really good rate? Prime plus 1, prime plus 2. If you're a really good customer, maybe get prime. So we obviously need to kind of play on those things and understand those things. So maybe before we delve into those things, let's kind of like, I'm pretty sure everybody kind of understands the differences between like, getting a bank finance option. So in that sense, I'm saying, you go to your banker or the bank, you go, hi, I'd like to extend my home loan, which is probably one of the better interest rates that you will get. And that's probably kind of one of the routes that you can go. So that's kind of like the bank finance option. But a lot of the time, what will happen is they'll look at it from a asset perspective. So they will see this as an asset, and the finance houses will very unlikely look at it as an option where you can kind of like offer it for more than 5 years. They'll probably give you a 5-year term, and that's kind of like as good as it gets. Now, the issue with something like that, it comes at quite a high price, etc. But that's the other kind of asset kind of approach to the finance solutions. Then obviously you have the lease to own option, and there's a couple of guys that do the lease to own options. Not quite the same products that they're offering, but they do. There is lease to own products out there, and it's really good. It is usually tend to be 36 months, etc. Take ownership of it, etc. So that process is there as well, and that is an option for a lot of clients. So then the other option that you kind of have is to go the I almost say rental option, but that's very expensive. And when I say rental option, is that there's micro lenders that's willing to rent at 11, 12, 13, 14, 15% that you pay. Very short period too, usually like 5 years, maybe less. Also, obviously, that interest rate that they're charging is quite high, and that's kind of like that's a bit of pill to swallow, quite frankly. And then obviously, lastly, we have new home. What are we offering? Which is effectively electricity as a service, or a power purchase agreement. So, and that's kind of like it in a nutshell. So let's go back to the beginning, and we spoke about, and we're going to talk about. I'm going to focus on the new home 30 and 45 today to kind of like give us like a kind of a good idea of it. So, if I had to go and pay for a new home 30 out of my own pocket, cash, that's going to cost me about 280,000 Rand retail. Okay. Now, I go to my bank and I go say, hey, Mr. Bank, please finance this for me. And they're probably going to do prime plus one. And I think prime at that point, when we did calculate, I'm not even sure what prime is at the moment. I think it might be 7.5%. But if we look at that, and 7.5% is a really good kind of price. We're looking at you paying over a 5-year term, starting off at about 5,677 Rand. It's quite a chunk of money. I mean, if you go compare that, 30 kilowatt hours, I mean, you're probably paying Eskom in the region of about, I would say 3,300, 3,400 around there. Maybe a little bit less, maybe with the new increases a little bit more, 15%. What a shocker that is. So with those, that's kind of like what you'll be paying for the bank, But let's say, for argument's sake, we're gonna stretch that out. We're gonna ask the bank to stretch that out over a 15-year period. You're looking at about 2,670 Rand a month from the bank, ballpark. Okay, it's quite a lot of money if we look at that. Still prime plus one, nothing has changed. From a new home perspective, we're offering it over same 15-year period for 3,240 Rand. Like, it's a huge difference. I'm lying. That's over the 10-year period. Sorry, I got my numbers wrong here. So the new home 30 over a 15-year period, you're paying 2,430 Rand, and that includes maintenance and it includes insurance. Okay, that's quite important to remember. 15 years with a bank, 2,600 Rand, none of that's included. You still got to phone your insurance company and says, oh, by the way, I've got a new asset that's sitting on my roof. Please make sure that's insured. So maybe add another $200-300. I'm not 100% sure what the insurance is at this point for individuals, but I would say probably 200 Rand, 250 Rand. If you compare it to a vehicle, which is obviously a little bit more higher risk, you're looking at 500 Rand, 600 Rand, etc. So let's take the middle ground here and say it's going to cost you about 250 Rand. So still from that perspective, new home is a really good kind of like option to choose. You can obviously choose a 10-year, which is like lots of people say, oh, but Sean, we want a 10-year term rather than the 15-year. And that brings it kind of like kicks it back to 3,240 Rand. Okay, so that's still not a bad number. If you're looking at what are you going to be probably spending with Eskom or City of Joburg or whoever it might be, that's really not a bad price either. And as we always said, if you really want to, at the end of the term, you pay us 1 Rand and the system is yours. And my opinion has always stood that I do believe that, energy is not everybody's business. It's not their core business. They don't all understand it. Yes, maintenance is kind of a key aspect to it, but it's just, do you really want to own something that you kind of like are not 100% confident in kind of how it works and the intricate matters around it? Even worse, if you like throw it out, it's like, do you really want to be held responsible at the end of the term for the recycling of those? You've already gotten a good solid 15 years out of the system. So what better to do is choose the next new technology that's already there. So to me, that's a really good idea. So yeah, I think that's kind of like where everything is going from that perspective. I think I read recently there was an article about ownership, and it says like, because all of us are becoming so very much cash flow sensitive and definitely not in the mindset anymore of wanting the need to own everything, but rather kind of like rent it so it's easy on your cash flow on a month-to-month basis. I think one of those aspects is really important, and it's because it's like there's just certain things you don't want to own. I mean, I've never had any inclination to own a piece of one of the coal power stations, to be quite frank. But if I can get a renewable energy solution on my home that gives me the energy that I need, well, I'll happily pay at the right price. I'm obviously not going to pay an exorbitant price for it. But some people out there, they want ownership. But New Home offers clients peace of mind that the system is insured, it'll always be operational. If something goes wrong, it's New Home. You don't have to fork out extra money. No, that's New Home's problem. We'll make sure that you have electricity. So let's talk about the New Home 45, okay? Cash. If I have to go pay for it out of my own pocket, it is going to cost you approximately 380,000 Rand, okay? That's quite a lot of money. I don't have 380k Rand, as I said earlier, who does? But let me take that to the bank. I'm going to go finance Prime Plus One again with one of the finance houses in SA. That's probably going to cost you in the region of 7,900 odd Rand. And that's over 5 years. Who's got that out of their cash flow? Like, do the calculation. If you want to say, okay, right, if I'm a New Home 45 user, I'm probably spending in the region of, I would say, 3,600 Rand a month on electricity, somewhere around there with my existing utility. A little bit more with the new 15% increases coming into play. But hey, maybe the bank is really good. They're going to give me it over a 15-year period. Then I'll be paying about 3,700 Rand. Okay. Now, if I have to compare that to New Home over the 15-year period, it's only going to cost me 3,590 Rand. Still cheaper, more cost effective. And the insurance and the maintenance is included in this. So that's really kind of like, makes so much sense. And obviously, as always, some people want to take ownership of it in a shorter period. Still the 1 Rand on both options. At the end, keep it, it's yours. You really don't mind. And if you want to do it over a shorter term, 10 years, 4,600 Rand a month. I mean, to me, it makes so much sense. So yeah, I don't think there's it's not usually kind of like a very long discussion around, the money aspect. It's sometimes a very difficult discussion. I think it's people look at it and kind of go, oh yes, it's it's a lot of money to spend. And yes, to get a proper solar system, high quality products at the right price, it is going to cost a lot of money. It's not as, people talk about, yeah, it's decreased by that percentage, but to get a proper system in your home, it's still going to cost you a fair chunk of cash. And that's cash out of your pocket that could be doing better things. So the suggestion from our side is, if you have money that you don't burningly need now to save, or even if you do, we do believe that it's much easier to spend a smaller monthly cash flow than trying to outlay all this capital. Let that capital go work. Let that capital go work for you in a different way. Rather pay what you would have paid a little bit and use New Home. Then one of the things that we got asked a couple of times is that, Sean, but hang on a second. You guys saying, okay, 10 years, 15 years, that's great. Thank you for those options, it's great. But I want to know about I'll hop on about the insurance part and also the maintenance part. But it's kind of a very important aspect to keep in mind. And I want everybody to realize that, if you're going to do this yourself, do it right, make sure it's insured. We're going off to Paris again yesterday. Tomorrow, very excited about it. But it's important to kind of really hit home how important it is to understand the various options that's out there, number one. So basically bank finance, asset kind of finance. So let's say when I say bank finance, clip it onto your whole loan. You're paying a lot of money for that. Then you're looking at the asset finance component. So lease to own effectively, if you want to call it that, or a rental option, whatever it is. Then there's obviously some of the guys out there that kind of they have the rental option that we spoke about. And then lastly, obviously, the new home option. We did talk about micro lenders, but I'm not going to go into there because, micro lending is a very kind of a unique space to go into, high pricing, etc. But I think most importantly, what we need to remember in this process is that from the finance houses perspective, they are built in a certain way and they do certain things. And I'm not kind of saying don't work with the banks. If you have an opportunity to work, go for it. Go for it. But most important to us is to have a good understanding that our clients know that from a price point perspective, if you compare New Home to any other options that's out there, we are exceptionally competitive. And from that perspective, I'm actually quite excited to reach out to everybody and offer, when I say reach out and offer, I'm very excited to reach out and give you kind of a comparison of how well priced New Home would be on a kilowatt hour rate versus what will be the new rates from our utility. So watch out, keep an eye on out there, and we're definitely going to post this. I don't have a hell of a lot more to say. I think it's crystal clear that New Home is a very good option from a financial perspective. If you compare it over the time and finance solutions that is out there, really good offering. And if there's anybody out there that have questions, please shoot them, have a ask. And yeah, unfortunately, our guest couldn't make it today. Such is life. But if there is any finance questions, reach out to us. We look forward to getting your questions. And yeah, next week is the last one, and it's going to be a very interesting one. So keep your eyes peeled, and I look forward to talking to everybody next week again. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one. Cheers.